Bryce Elder shines in his debut, making a case to stay in the starting rotation long term. Plus, the offense breaks out in a 16-4 victory over the Washington Nationals, and perhaps one Braves player could be up for NL Player of the Week. Who could that be? We'll cover all of that on today's episode of Lockedon Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your favorite teams every day. I am your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on Twitter at shortstopball. Check out my bio there to see everywhere I am covering the game of baseball, including the Atlanta Braves in written form over at tomahawktake.com. Also, make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at @locked_Braves. Subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Even if you don't watch us on YouTube, why don't you go on over there and hit that subscribe button for us? Really would appreciate it. It helps out the show a ton. And thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen each and every day. We post episodes daily, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and we are free and available on all platforms. Make sure you check out the Locked On Braves postcast as well, hosted by Grant McCauley, and I am typically on there myself. So make sure that you are subscribed to that as well on Locked On Sports Atlanta. And the Braves bounced back after a rough defeat Monday by the hands of the Washington Nationals and got a 16-4 victory on Tuesday, highlighted by the start from Bryce Elder and also some great performances on offense as well, headlined by Marcell Ozuna. We'll talk about that. We'll also preview the Wednesday afternoon game, which should be a really good pitching matchup. We'll get into all of that. But let's start with Bryce Elder. And look, I was not necessarily pleased with the way that Brian Snitker handled the situation with Tucker Davidson, bringing him into a game that was already kind of out of hand, and then forcing the Braves to face Chadwick Tromp off the roster, as well as Jacob Webb, having to DFA both of them in order to add Bryce Elder and Jackson Stevens. Nothing against Elder. If you know and you listen to me during the offseason, I love Bryce Elder. I think he's going to be a key part in a big league rotation for years to come. And we saw a debut of that on Tuesday. I just did not think that was handled particularly well. You already had Tucker Davidson there. I feel like he deserved a shot in the starting rotation. And for whatever reason, Snicker decided to use him in relief in what was already a game that was pretty much out of hand. But having said that, I'm really glad that we got to see Bryce Elder because he absolutely shined in his big league debut with the Atlanta Braves, going 5 2/3 innings, giving up six hits, no walks, 3 earned runs with 4 strikeouts. And he gave up 3 of those hits in the 6th inning, his last inning there. He may have been wearing down a little bit, getting a little tired. He did finish with 85 pitches. He gave up back-to-back home runs in that 6th inning to Juan Soto and Josh Bell, two of the best hitters in that Nationals lineup. So understandable there, but still overall just a outstanding performance. I don't think you could have asked for much more from Bryce Elder, and that's really what he's done all throughout his very short minor league career. He takes you deep into games. He gets batters out. He works efficiently in the zone, and he carried that over to the big league level. And that's always a key thing with some of these prospects, particularly pitchers, is how do they carry that success that they had at the minor league level up to the major league level? Do they try to do things differently? Do they try to be too fine, too perfect? Something I think we've seen in the past with Kyle Wright, trying to be too perfect and not just trusting his stuff. I think we've seen it with other guys as well. Bryce Wilson comes to mind. And it looked like Elder just continued to pitch like he always has, like he did at Texas, like he did last year in pro ball. And it did not necessarily get off to a fantastic start for Bryce Elder either. He Cesar Hernandez laid down a bunt to start the game, a beautiful bunt single, and making a big league debut, the last thing you're thinking about is somebody dropping down a bunt for a hit. So that already right there just kind of threw Bryce Elder off kilter a little bit. Then he gave up another hit, set runners up at first and third with nobody out, and it looked like the rookie could be getting bounced early in this one. But then he got a ground ball. Matt Olson made a good throw to second base to start the double play. Run did score, but getting those two outs was huge with no further damage in that inning. And then he really just took off after that. And really, until that sixth inning, he was in complete control. And it was just really nice to see. And maybe the most impressive thing, and I tweeted this out during the game, that perhaps the most impressive thing for Bryce Elder in this game is that he was sitting on the bench for sometimes 30 minutes or more in between innings because the offense was putting up so much runs, putting up so many runs and staying out there hitting forever. And he continued to just get up off the bench, go back out there, and it didn't affect him at all. He continued to command his pitches in the zone, throw strikes, and get hitters out. And let's talk about those pitches and the pitch mix for Bryce Elder on Tuesday. He threw four pitches primarily, all of them 20% or more of the time. He threw his changeup the most at 29%, and then the cutter at 27%, the sinker at 22%, and the slider at 20%. He did throw one curveball in there as well. The hardest pitch of the night that he threw was a sinker at 92.1 miles per hour. Again, I talked about this yesterday when I thought Bryce Elder could start. He's not going to dominate you. He's not going to overpower you with anything. The guy just knows how to pitch. He knows how to command all four of those pitches. And when you can do that and you can place them where you want to, and they have the type of movement that these pitches have, that's how he's able to succeed and get hitters out. And there's not a huge speed differential between any of these pitches. The slider comes in at around 81 miles per hour on average, and the sinker at 88 miles per hour on average. So with the changeup and cutter mixed in between there. So again, not huge speed differentials either, but what makes Bryce Elder so successful is the movement that he has on his pitches. It's able to create a lot of weak contact. That changeup has a ton of fade diving down and in on righties. It's the same for the sinker, except it's more horizontal movement and it's a little faster. And then he has the cutter, which has horizontal movement going away from righties, and then a slider with more down and away movement from righties. So you're talking about four pitches. They all move. They all move differently. That is very tough for a batter to figure out. And look, I play MLB The Show. If you're an MLB The Show player, this is the exact type of pitch mix that you want. You would want it maybe to be a little bit, the velocity to be a little bit harder and some more differential between the pitches, but still, you're looking for pitches that move, that have different types of movement that you can keep hitters off balance with. And so this is the perfect pitch mix for a starter to be able to do that. And that's why Bryce Elder has been so successful. Now, does he stay in the starting rotation? I certainly hope so. And I think he will. I think he'll at least get one more start, especially if Snitker decides to stick with the six-man rotation for another time through the rotation. I think he'll get at least one more start. And then like I talked about yesterday's podcast, I think the fifth spot in the rotation then becomes a battle. Huascar Noah will get another chance, and he deserves another opportunity in the starting rotation. You can't just make a knee-jerk reaction off one start after what was a shortened spring training. These guys are still getting stretched out, working on things. So not going to overreact to that. But I do think the fifth spot in the rotation becomes a battle this season. And I think Bryce Elder has certainly, now that he's on the 40-man roster, that was the only thing really holding him back. Like, he was impressive last year, the minor league pitcher of the year. He was impressive in spring training. He more than deserved this opportunity. The only thing holding him back was a 40-man roster spot. And now that he has that, there's nothing really to hold him back, especially after the start he just had. So I think he'll stay in the rotation. I think he'll get at least one more start. Again, if they stick with this six-man rotation for a little bit longer, and then it'll become a battle between he and Inoa, Tucker Davidson, Kyle Muller for that fifth spot in the rotation going forward. As I talked about during the offseason, I did my scouting report on Elder. I think he's a safe bet to be a third or fourth starter in a big league rotation for a long time because of what I talked about, his ability to command all four of those pitches in the zone. And he knows how to pitch, he knows how to get hitters out. And we were able to see that on Tuesday. And hopefully we get to see that for a long time in a Braves uniform. All right, it wasn't just Bryce Elder on Tuesday. The offense broke out as well. We'll talk about that next. As you already know, a Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar out there. And not only are they great tasting, but they're great for you as well. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a typical candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Built Bar is the perfect choice if you're looking to find that healthy snack that is also great tasting. They have many different flavors and great flavors. Some of my favorites, the mint brownie, peanut butter brownie. I love brownies, but also cookies and cream is my favorite one out there right now. Make sure you're going to built.com so you can see all the many different flavors they have. And if you haven't already, make sure you try the Puffs, one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat. And like all Built Bars, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Go to built.com, use promo code ALOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code ALOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. So we talked about it again on Tuesday's podcast. I felt like this was a good game, a good spot for the Braves offense to kind of break out, particularly guys outside of the top of the order, outside of Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, and Austin Riley, who had good games in their own rights. But I feel like this was a good opportunity for other guys in the lineup to kind of break out as well against a guy in Patrick Corbin, who the Braves have just owned over the past 2+ years now. In fact, Patrick Corbin's now lost 7 straight starts against Atlanta. In those 7 starts, he's 0-7 with a 7.25 ERA. And the Braves lineup's been pretty right-handed heavy for a couple of years now, which probably explains some of that in the left-handed pitcher. But they have just completely owned him at this point. And it was a good game for a lot of players. Like I said, some of the players that were already off to good starts, like Marcell Ozuna, who was just completely on another planet at this point. He was 3 for 6 with 2 home runs. He's now 9 for 24 on the season with those 2 home runs and just 2 strikeouts. He had 5 more hard hit balls in this game, and those are balls hit at 95 miles per hour or harder exit velocity. In fact, the only ball in this game he did not hit hard was off D. Strange Gordon, who was pitching as a position player in the bottom of the 8th inning. He popped that one up. It's the only ball in this game he did not hit 95 miles per hour or harder. He continues to just absolutely mash the baseball. And look, I was skeptical of what he would look like coming into this season after not facing major league competition for nearly a year. And he has looked great to start the season. He can be a streaky player. I'm not saying this is going to continue all year, but certainly a great sign for Marcell Ozuna that he has come in and just destroyed the baseball, hitting everything hard right now. Travis d'Arnaud, he also had a 3-hit game, and he's off to a great start as well. One player I was particularly looking forward to breaking out on Tuesday was Ozzie Albies, and he did so, had a 3-hit game, but his 3rd hit was a solo home run off a position player in D. Strange Gordon. He took advantage there and put one up into the Hank Aaron terrace, but nonetheless, a 3-hit game for him. Dansby Swanson ended up with a couple of hits, again, one of them coming off a position player, but still right now just great for Dansby to see the ball get down, put the ball in play, and see the ball get down for a couple of hits. So big for him. Everybody in the lineup had a hit. Matt Olson and Austin Riley were surprisingly the last ones to join the hit parade, although Olson had 3 more walks in this game, giving him 7 on the year. I mean, he just continues to get on base. He's doing everything we hoped Matt Olson would do in a Braves uniform. Couple of very funny moments in this game as well. One of them by Guillermo Heredia, who got in a rundown between third base and home plate. And it's one of the best rundowns I've ever seen, executed as poorly as can be by the Washington Nationals. And it ended up that Guillermo Heredia ran into the Nationals catcher and was awarded home plate and scored a run. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go back and watch that replay. Just a fantastically hilarious play by the Washington Nationals, and great stuff from Guillermo Heredia, who is just life and energy and everything that's great about life. So go and watch that. And then also, while D. Strange Gordon was pitching in the bottom of the eighth, he plunked Travis d'Arnaud at like a 60-mile-per-hour, I don't even know what you call it, changeup, and d'Arnaud hit the deck like he had been hit by a bullet. Pretty hilarious as well. He also mercifully ended that inning by getting thrown out at home plate. So a couple of funny moments also in the game, which was ended up being a blowout in a 16-4 victory. So the Braves record now goes to 3-3 on the season. All right, with Tuesday's game behind us and Wednesday's game quickly approaching, as it's an afternoon game, we'll preview that next. Wednesday's game will be an afternoon affair starting here in just a couple of hours, and it will be Max Fried versus Josiah Gray. Fried looking to rebound after a tough opening day. Had some bad luck in that one, just some balls that really weren't hit very hard, but still, obviously, he wants to have a better outing on Wednesday against the Washington Nationals. Some players in the Nationals lineup that have some success against Max Fried are Yadiel Hernandez, Victor Robles, and surprise, surprise, Juan Soto. They all have pretty good numbers against Max Fried. However, Soto has struck out 7 times in 16 at bats against Max Fried. I can't imagine he has a strikeout rate much higher against many other pitchers. As for Josiah Gray, he made back-to-back starts against the Braves last year. Gave up 4 earned on 9 hits and 2 walks in 11 innings pitched with 16 strikeouts in those 2 starts. So pretty solid there against the Braves last season. In Gray's first start of the season, he gave up 4 earned on 8 hits and 2 walks with 5 Ks over 4 innings pitched. Excuse me. Ozzie, Travis d'Arnaud, and Dansby each have 2 hits against him in limited at bats. For Josiah Gray, throws a fastball around 93 miles per hour, slider at 84, curve and changeup at 87. The changeup at 87 miles per hour, so a pretty hard changeup. The curveball and slider are his put-away pitches. Both have a whiff percentage over 40% last year. So the key for the Braves hitters in this one is to sit on that fastball. Don't get behind in the count because, as you saw from the numbers last year, he struck out 16 Braves batters in 11 innings pitched. So don't fall behind in the count, or he will go to that curveball and slider, which have very good movement for him and get very high whiff rate. So that's the key for the Braves hitters on Wednesday afternoon. Hunt that fastball. Don't fall behind in counts, and I think they'll be okay. And hopefully the Braves will be able to come away with a series win over the Washington Nationals. That will do it for this episode of Lockedon Braves. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Lockedon_Braves. You can follow me at ShortstopBall. Make sure you check out the postcast as well on YouTube on the Locked On Sports Atlanta feed on YouTube. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Lockedon Braves podcast, where you can get that postcast feed as well as my podcast there on Locked On Braves. Again, that will do it for this episode, and we will talk to you next time.